Hello, this is Gamal Hassan, and in this video we're going to get to know more about how to apply active learning or AL in the classroom. Let's get started. First of all, we need to know what is meant by active learning or AL. So, active learning means to have every student in the class engaged and participates, collaborates with others to achieve some specific learning objectives in the classroom. So applying active learning, AL, in a classroom for students involves creating a dynamic and engaging learning environment that encourages student participation and collaboration. So the students help each other and work in small groups to achieve some learning objectives. To achieve or to apply active learning, there are some steps that must be followed. We're going to move directly to the first step and we're going to go through them one by one. SMART. The first step is set clear learning objectives. My lovely friends, for every class and for any activity in a classroom, there are some learning objectives. There must be some learning objectives, and those learning objectives must be displayed and must be shown in a specific place where they can be seen by every single student in the class. And once the teacher finishes any of these learning objectives, the teacher should tick next to it to make sure and to let the students know that they have already finished this learning objective. And there are some specifications for learning objective or learning objectives. Learning objectives must be SMART. And SMART here is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. So S stands for specific, M measurable, A achievable, R realistic, and T timed or time bound. So learning objectives must be specific. So you must come up with some specific learning objectives so the students can know what is expected of them to be done in the very end of the class or in the very end of the week, for example. And learning objectives must be measurable. The students, for example, can make self-assessment to evaluate their performance, whether they can master these skills or the learning objectives or not. And also the teacher can assess whether the student can master this specific learning objective or not. And also, learning objectives must be achievable and realistic, so the students would not feel frustrated if they cannot achieve some learning objectives. And also, learning objectives must be timed. So the teacher can say that by the end of the class, for example, the students can be able to master these specific learning objectives, or by the end of the year, or by the end of the trimester. So learning objectives must be timed. So to sum up, learning objectives must be SMART. So they must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and timed or time bound. So begin by setting clear learning objectives for each lesson or activity. These learning or these objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound or SMART. Communicate these objectives to the students so they understand what they are expected to learn. So the learning objectives must be shown in a clear place so every student can see them clearly. And once you finish any of these objectives, you must tick next to it, and this helps the student, or this helps students to learn and to know what is expected to learn by the end of the class. Use hands-on activities. This is related to Realia, to get some real objects or to let the students be involved in some real activities so they can master the learning objective. So use hands-on activities. Incorporate hands-on activities that allow students to actively engage with the learning material. like for example this abacus, to help the students learn how to know how to skip counting activities by twos, for example. This can include experiments, for example in the science lab, or field trips, simulations, group projects, role playing if you have any selection in English, for example, like a story or any similar activity. So you can just have the students play it or act this selection out or the story out, so they have hands-on activities to be engaged in something that makes them more able to master the skills, or any activity that requires students to actively participate and manipulate objects or information, so they can just be more involved if you have, or if you add some hands-on activities to achieve active learning. And the target is to make the students more active and to make the class more student-centered by applying hands-on activities. The third step, encourage collaboration to help the students help each other to achieve a specific task or a specific activity, as you can see here. So foster a collaborative learning environment by promoting group work and peer-to-peer interaction. Assign group projects or activities that require students to work together to solve problems, discuss ideas, and share knowledge. This helps develop teamwork and communication skills. These are very important. And by the way, working in teams and being able to communicate positively is a very important 21st century skill. So the student or the teacher must apply some activities that can help the students to collaborate, to help each other, to be responsible for some specific tasks to be accomplished, so that eventually the team in the very end can achieve one goal or one activity. And this helps them to communicate, but because while the students are collaborating to achieve some specific task, they can communicate. And this is very important for the 21st century skills for their career or future careers, and for their well-being, and for their being able to express themselves and talk freely without being afraid of any negative feedback. This is very important. Okay, the fourth step is to incorporate technology. The teacher must use all the means of technology, or all the technology materials that are available in a classroom. So utilize technology tools and resources to enhance active learning experiences. This can include interactive whiteboards. The smart boards must be applied all the time. Educational apps, online simulations, or multimedia presentations, because technology can provide opportunities for students to explore and interact with content in a more engaging way. Because all of the students now are fond of the means of technology and social media applications, so the teacher must apply and must utilize means of technology inside the classroom. This is very important. Number 5, offer choices and autonomy. So let the students decide what to do, or decide how to achieve any goal or any activity. This can help them feel that they own the whole process, and the class as a whole is student-centered. Give them some freedom to decide what to do, since they can accomplish the mission in the very end. Let them try and fail, because there is a very important approach that we call trial and error, or error and trial. So if they try and fail, or if they try and make some mistakes, they can avoid those mistakes in the future, so they can just be self-learners. So provide students with choices and autonomy in their learning. Allow them to select topics of interest, choose how they demonstrate their understanding, for example, through presentations, artworks, or written assignments, or decide on the pace of their learning. This fosters ownership. They can think that they feel that they own the whole process, so they can be more motivated. And motivation in the learning process. To the next step, interact or integrate real-world connections. You must connect the topic to the real world or to the outside world. So connect the learning material to real-world applications and contexts. Help students understand how the concepts they are learning are relevant and applicable in their everyday lives. You must connect the topic, the lesson, to the real world. This can be done through real-life examples, guest speakers, field trips, or case studies. For example, if you have a science class, you can get the students a microscope, for example, so they can see, for example, the plant cell, the animal cell, the magnetic energy. You can just get some magnets in the classroom so they can just know how those objects have some unseen energy. So this is what we call to connect what is written in textbooks to the real world, or text to the world and text to themselves. This is very important to integrate real world connections so they can know that what they learn inside the classroom can be applied in the real world. To take the students, for example, into some field trips. This is very important. On guest speakers, for example, you can apply role play. For example, you can get a student like, for example, if the students can imitate that they are applying for a job. So one will be the interviewer and one will be the one who applies for a job, for example. And this is guest speaker or guest speakers, for example, to let them imitate that there is a celebrity or a very important person, like a very famous football player, and they want to make an interview with him. This is very important to connect or integrate real-world connections. Number 7, provide immediate feedback. There must be a feedback because, as we discussed before, that learning objectives must be measurable, and in the very end, you must let the students know or evaluate or assess whether they have already mastered those skills or not. So offer timed and constructive feedback to students to guide their learning. This can be done through individual or group discussions, peer feedback, self-assessment, or formative assessments. And you must know that all of these forms of assessment, so we have holistic feedback about the whole class, we have self-assessment, we have peer assessment, and there are formative assessment and summative assessments, and there are many kinds of assessments every teacher must be aware of. So feedback helps students understand their strengths and areas for improvement, promoting active reflection and growth. They can just help them improve. If they have any problems, they can work very hard to achieve and to correct their mistakes. So there must be a feedback, and the feedback must be immediate by the end of the class, for example. Number 8, reflect and adjust. For any activity, for any technique, for any approach the teacher applies inside the classroom, the teacher must reflect and adjust. The teacher must just evaluate or assess his or her approaches to know what works well and what needs to be changed or improved. So regularly reflect on the effectiveness of your AL strategies. AL means active learning, and make adjustments as needed. Ask for feedback from students and colleagues to understand what is working well and what can be improved or motivated. Continuously seek professional development opportunities to enhance your AL practices. So the teacher must reflect and must adjust, must be updated. You must just try to attend some professional development seminars, or you can just search the internet for the latest approaches in teaching, so you can reflect and adjust and update your learning approaches. So finally, remember, active learning is a student-centered approach that requires active engagement and participation. By creating a stimulating and interactive learning environment, children can develop critical thinking skills, problem-solving abilities, and a deeper understanding of the content. So the students must be well engaged and must be active inside the classroom by applying all of the 8 steps mentioned before. And thank you for watching. Gamal Hassan. Have a good day, all of you. Thanks.